In childhood days, I did know that I wanted to be somehow associated with healthcare. At the same time, I also knew that I did not want to be a doctor.
Okay.
And so if I did not want to be a doctor, what's the other thing that you can do by impacting lives is bring medicines to patients. So I worked in analytical development, which was part of the process development group. I worked in analytical sciences as part of a site that is supporting manufacturing. And I also worked in the quality organization. So I had covered quite a bit of ground in terms of understanding the opportunities that are there even in a large company like that. What we need to do is, of course, look at the antimicrobial resistance from a much more holistic perspective, starting with the whole approach of antimicrobial stewardship, which is the first place to start for this. But there are many different elements, and I believe the vaccine industry has a role to play in this as well.
Okay.
If you think about global warming, right? What's happening with global warming is world habitats are changing. There is more and more interactions that are happening between species that did not interact with at one point of time. We have volume, we don't have value.
Yes.
On volume, we are big. On value, we need to get bigger.
Hello everyone, welcome to Pharma Now. So on today's session, we have Dr. Mahesh Bhalgat from the MD, Group MD of Veeda, Veeda Clinical Research, a very renowned CRO organization here. So we are going to take a complete walkthrough to his journey, his career journey, how he has achieved this position. So Dr. Mahesh, welcome to Pharma Now.
Thank you.
So first question. So being a Mumbai boy, living in Ghatkopar region and getting into US and now being a group MD of one of the very renowned CRO, Veeda Clinical Research. How this journey has been and how you have come up to this stage. Just wanted to go through.
So I think one thing that has been very important for me is to make sure that I'm always working in an area that is impacting human lives.
Yeah.
And that has brought me towards some sort of a medical paramedical field, which is what I chose to be when I did my graduation in Mumbai at the Bombay College of Pharmacy. After that, I chose to go to the US. I did my PhD there and continued to do research with regards to looking for ways of tackling one of the most challenging areas of research, which is oncology. So I had the opportunity to work with antibody drug conjugates as part of my PhD work, which I started in University of Utah in Salt Lake City. Having then spent some years in the US, I worked for a few different companies. One of the things that I did was actually work in large molecule space all my career. Which has been very helpful for me, because today when we look at the direction and trend in which the research is happening, whether it's in the universities or in the industrial setting, it's more towards large molecules.
Right.
That therefore is for me almost opportunistic. By already being a large molecule and biopharmaceutical monoclonal antibody proteins kind of a person from my basic training. The last company that I worked for in the US was Amgen, the world's largest biotherapeutics manufacturing company, with a large presence in terms of a very robust pipeline of new products coming in. But took the plunge, made the trip from Amgen to a company called Biological E, which we all very familiar now after the vaccine arena in India. Also then moved to become the COO of a Sanofi company, because Sanofi acquired Shantha Biotechniques, and I took on a role as the CEO of Sanofi, which was again keeping me in the vaccine area, large molecule area, but in a much broader role, as that particular enterprise was about serving the need for Sanofi's manufacturing in this part of the world.
Right.
So it was about moving products that were either on the shelf or were not yet approved for whatever reasons, and looking at them and saying, what is it that we can offer from the Indian environment of the Sanofi enterprise. So I had a good journey there, almost a 10-fold growth in revenue over the 6 years that I spent with Sanofi. And then I moved to Syngene. Syngene is another large enterprise, probably India's largest CRO CDMO of its type, that does both small molecules and large molecules, works on different modalities, covers everything from discovery, development to manufacturing. And I was the chief operating officer there, an enterprise that we were able to grow to about 8,500 people by the time that I was there, with almost a $3 billion market cap.
Wow.
So that's the kind of opportunity that I had. And there, I think one of the key transformations that has happened for Syngene in the last few years that I have been a part of is moving it from a pure CRO or a highly focused CRO to more of a CRO and CDMO. So that's been a very interesting journey for me. And most recently, I've now joined Veeda Clinical Research as their group MD. We have 3 group companies that are there as part of the organization. There's the preclinical part of the company, which is referred to as BioNeeds. It's an entity that we have in Bangalore that does toxicological services, safety assessments, serves both the pharma industry and the agro industry. In addition, then we have the Veeda parent organization, which does work with generics and more with the healthy volunteer services. We've recently acquired, after I've come on board, we've recently acquired an unit in Europe, which was originally called as HEADS, now referred to as Veeda Europe, which is headquartered in Ireland, and we have staff in Ireland, Greece, and Italy, which does clinical trials with patients with novel molecules, mostly antibodies, and in the oncology setting.
Okay.
So this journey of moving from working with antibodies as part of my PhD thesis, working with it in companies like Amgen in the US, then coming and working on vaccines in India, and continuing to build the enterprise, the knowledge base, and the ecosystem in India through a company like both Syngene and Veeda, which are service providers, therefore impact a lot of the client partners, has been a very interesting one.
Amazing. All big roles. But frankly, I want to go back to your childhood days, right? When you were in Mumbai doing B Farm, and I think those what was the time like? Timeline.
This was in the late 80s.
Late 80s. I think that time, I don't know, B Farm was that famous also.
Correct.
And very few people were opting for a pharma.
Yeah.
So what makes you to opt for a pharma that time?
Yeah. It had to do with the fact that I wanted to be associated with healthcare.
Okay.
At the same time, I did not want to be a doctor.
But why healthcare?
It's the best way to impact human lives. If you think that there is a purpose to your life, you have to think about what is that purpose.
So during those childhood days, you were always
during those
feeling
childhood days, I did know that I wanted to be somehow associated with healthcare. At the same time, I also knew that I did not want to be a doctor.
Okay.
And so if I did not want to be a doctor, what's the other thing that you can do by impacting lives is bring medicines to patients.
Amazing.
And so if you then think of the pharmaceutical training that we offer in India, which I think the curriculum has evolved even more so than when I was a student, is quite amazing and quite diverse. We cover everything from the making of drugs to going back to even discovering drugs.
Right.
And then to understanding how the drugs work in your body. So you understand physiology, you understand drug metabolism and drug elimination in the body. You understand design of drugs, and you also then, of course, figure out how they have to get manufactured, how they have to get tested, so that you can bring continuously approved drugs of high quality to the patients.
Right.
Now, in that continuum, you're clearly making a difference to patients who need something, right? Because these are patients who have some sort of a disease. Or, of course, if it is vaccines, then it is even more better because it's before they get the disease you've gone and tackled it.
Absolutely.
So the way that you can impact human lives through healthcare, I believe, is very impressive.
Amazing.
And there are a few professions that can do it very directly.
Nice.
This, I think, is one
Absolutely. I think, but still, like, I understand, like, this is a very unusual path of yours from Mumbai, then US. I think you spent almost 20 years in US.
Correct.
And playing all big roles there.
I was there for 20 years in
so,
the US.
Okay. So what makes you to come back to India?
So when you're in the US, there's a thought that is always going on. Do I want to be here forever, or do I want to go back to India? And there are some who are very clear in their mind that I want to stay here and I'm never going back.
Correct.
There are others who are very clear that I'm actually going back But along the way, they falter and they say, well, maybe I don't want to go back. Yes, I thought that I want to go back, but they don't. And I would say I was in one of those latter camps, but eventually you think about, what's valuable for you is your interactions with people. And if that's important for you, then you say, well, where am I going to get more of that? Where am I going to make a larger difference? And if you believe that you're going to make a bigger difference by being in an Indian environment, is what I wanted to try out. So therefore, we said, okay, as much as I have a nice job at Amgen, a very large reputed company at a good role, I spent my time in Amgen. I actually worked in 3 different areas. I worked in analytical development, which was part of the process development group. I worked in analytical sciences as part of a site that is supporting manufacturing. And I also worked in the quality organization. So I had covered quite a bit of ground in terms of understanding the opportunities that are there even in a large company like that. And then I said, well, that's okay. But I think I can make a bigger impact by being in India, which is what brought me and my family back to India.
That's really wonderful. Now coming back to your area of expertise, right? You are being a very advocate of vaccines, the impact of vaccines, and I think in your last lecture also I was listening to you talking about connecting the dots between vaccine and antibiotics. So, okay, what do you think? Why a vaccine is becoming so important and for the global healthcare system?
Yeah, I think if you think about the burden that we face as a planet today, there are a few things that are very obvious and are at a very large scale. One of those is things that everybody is today talking about, but not enough work that is happening, which is global warming. Right? There's a lot of impact that we are all bringing to the planet through global warming. The other is through things like AMR or antimicrobial resistance, as it is referred to. And these, to me, are things that we can actually impact as a human community. Now, why and how does antimicrobial resistance come in as a front and center opportunity? Is because it happens because of one of the reasons is you have a rampant and a widespread large use of antibiotics.
Yeah.
Antibiotics are getting to be used more as prophylactics. That's not the design for antibiotics.
Okay.
They are also not being used completely from a therapeutic implementation perspective where patients decide to drop the use of antibiotics midway between a course. So, a number of different reasons because of which antibiotic resistance is going up.
Correct.
And the usage of it is continuing to further increase, leading to even what is now called as the hospital-led infections. If we can tackle these kinds of microbes, because these are all microbes, these are all the kinds of things that vaccines can actually work on, then we are reducing the potential of having the need to even use antibiotics.
Okay.
By not even having these microbes around in our environment.
But is it really possible to do this?
Is it really possible? It's not something that's easy to do, but it's something that we have to work on.
Okay.
Because if we start to say that, first of all, nobody thought that smallpox could be eliminated or eradicated from the planet at one point of time. Polio, which is even more recent and has gone through a dramatic journey of eradication in almost all parts of the world, is impressive, right?
Yep.
So can you get to targets that were unthinkable at one point of time? I believe so. Now, what we need to do is, of course, look at the antimicrobial resistance from a much more holistic perspective, starting with the whole approach of antimicrobial stewardship, which is the first place to start for this. But there are many different elements, and I believe the vaccine industry has a role to play in this as well.
Okay. And anyone is started taking the steps towards that?
There are steps that are being taken towards it.
Okay.
There are companies and researchers who are looking at programs to say, how can I impact the kinds of bacteria or the kinds of organisms that lead to antimicrobial resistance. Once you start studying that and you start to say, what is the environment that they are in? How do I want to tackle that environment? And what are my options for tackling that environment? The vaccine component starts to fit in. Unfortunately, the journey is not easy, right?
Yeah.
But never is the launch of any drug against any, any component in the whole disease segment that we work in.
I agree, but this is going to be disruption if this may happen, right? But you were also connecting this with the global warming phenomenon.
Yeah.
So I wanted to understand how can you elaborate that part?
So if you think about global warming, right, what's happening with global warming is world habitats are changing. There is more and more interactions that are happening between species that did not interact with at one point of time. That will continue to happen because the opportunity for the ecosystem of the planet is going to be limited. There are going to be fewer areas where you can be inhabiting those areas because of the temperature changes that are going through.
Right.
I mean, today already we say, man, you can't live in this city or that city. I don't want to call out any specific cities, but because it's so hot, right? Or I don't want to go there during this season because it's so hot. And that is leading to us localizing ourselves in fewer parts and of the planet.
Yes.
This is what is going to bring species that were not interacting closer. What's going to happen from that? As species come closer, which were not used to, you're going to have the risk of more cross-species transmissions that can happen. Understanding that risk of cross-species transmission, preventing that by using vaccines, preventing the impact of that from especially viral diseases, is the opportunity for where the vaccine industry can make a difference.
Wow.
So understanding what dynamics, and these are studies that are being done, right? So there are the data generation teams around the world that look at how migration is happening. When you look at even some of these species that are very well known to be migrating, how have their patterns changed over the last 100 years? Whales, for example, are all things that help you to say, this is actually changing. Because the temperature of the planet or the temperature of the water or the ecosystem is changing, leading to such interactions. And that's just one component of how global warming is having an impact, and where the opportunity for us to be much more proactive and tackling it from a vaccine perspective comes in.
Very interesting. I think it's very interesting to have this perspective. I think you are the first person I met who is connecting the global warming and a vaccine together, and it's a very different perspective. Now, coming back to the technological advancement in the vaccine, right? I think you were talking about mRNA as a technology. Just wanted to understand how it is different than the current vaccine systems.
Let me just mention one more thing on the previous one, which is about the global warming. I think in general, though, it's about not just the vaccine industry. Everybody needs to think about global warming.
Agreed.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, our philosophy, even in the environment that we have in Veeda, is to say, what can we do to impact sustainability better? So, and the smallest, simplest things that we don't necessarily think about is, can I eliminate plastic at 1 bottle a day from my consumption? Can I eliminate plastic when I go to the grocery store and buy my fruits and vegetables? Even those are things for us to think about. The vaccine industry has yet another opportunity, but while also bringing in these sorts of implementations into their testing environment, which is what we do in Veeda, or into the manufacturing environment for the vaccine manufacturers. So there's a number of different opportunities. I just wanted to cover that. I'll address your last question with regards to the mRNA. I think mRNA as a technology is really important for us to look at, because it's a different way of delivering a vaccine. What happens in case of a typical vaccine that is made is you deliver the antigen, which is the component that is going to make your body make antibodies against it, and you're going to tell the body, this is what you protect me against. Once this comes into the body again in my lifetime, please make sure that I already have the antibodies that will take it out. Right? That is what a vaccine does. What does an mRNA vaccine do, or what does an mRNA technology do? mRNA technology actually doesn't send this exact antigen into your body. What it sends into your body is actually something that goes into the cells, makes that protein, which is what you want to prepare the antibodies against. So it turns your cells into the factories, and it makes the cells act as your antigen making factories.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Now this, therefore, is building the capability within your body to be much more ready to make that. Now, and there's a number of benefits of doing that. First of all, mRNA versus a protein from making it is different. You make an mRNA in fewer steps than you make a protein, because to make a protein you first need to also have the gene of interest, then you make the protein, then you purify the protein, so on and so forth.
Correct.
In this case, you're just going after, I'm oversimplifying, of course, but what you do is you just make the template part of it, and you're using that. You're not taking it all the way into protein manufacturing and downstream technology. After that, what you then do is the opportunity to say that my technology, once I know it works for a certain protein, I can now basically use the rest of the environment and just change the gene so that I change the protein that it's going after. So today it could be a chikungunya protein. Tomorrow it may be a protein that is against typhoid. It may be a protein that's against another disease, what have you. That makes transferability from one vaccine to another much faster. So in case of a situation where you have a pandemic, where you want vaccine doses to be delivered faster, the fewer steps that you have to go through, the fewer steps of optimization, research that you need to originally do to put the whole environment of the mRNA together, and the envelope of the mRNA, because you can't, unfortunately, you can't inject plain mRNA into the body.
Correct.
You have to inject the mRNA in a nanoparticle environment. Now, if that is all standardized and you just change the gene, then the vaccine development process can be much more shorter, and therefore making it a lot more effective. Now, this is of course just one component of impact. There is then the opportunity of using mRNA vaccines even for diseases like cancer. mRNA sort of concepts are also much more amenable to customized therapies, which can be leading to addressing the whole need that we see coming from personalized medicine perspective. So there's a number of different things that we have to look at. Of course, nothing is foolproof, nothing is perfect. There's a lot of work that still needs to happen. But these are all the high potential opportunities that exist.
Fantastic.
Very
okay,
good.
the last questions, like now you are back in India leading few companies. What potential do you find in India to be a leader in vaccine? Rather, we are a leader in vaccine manufacturing already, but in overall innovation side and all.
Yeah, I think actually it's a very good and very important question, because we are a leader in manufacturing, but we are a leader in manufacturing of a certain select number of vaccines, and we are doing that on the lower end of the value chain. So we have volume, we don't have value.
Yes.
On volume, we are big. On value, we need to get bigger. So what's the opportunity for us? The opportunity for us is to say, how do we go after even more valuable vaccines by showing the prowess that we have in our technologies, in our technology development, as opposed to simply reproducing what we've been doing, right? So that's one. The other is, diseases today are very much understood from their demographic impact perspective, but not all of them. We need to focus on diseases that are important for different parts of the planet where the value can also be realized. They may not necessarily always be for India. So for India, we can always be working on volume. For other parts of the globe, we have to look at and say, can we bring value? So capturing both of those segments by a mix of innovation and routine manufacturing is how we need to look at this industry.
Wonderful. And now, as a group MD of Veeda, are you connecting back to the mission what you saw
Absolutely.
at childhood?
So, absolutely, right. So as Veeda, we are working on, our preclinical team works on helping identify the right candidates that need to be taken into development and manufacturing. knowing that they are effective, they don't have any toxicity. That's the part that our preclinical group does. That's called BioNeeds. It's based out of Bangalore. The clinical group, which is based out of Ahmedabad, looks at the generic drugs, makes sure that those generic drugs have the right profile from a biodistribution in the body. You're getting the right levels of that drug in the body after ingesting it, doing those trials, so that therefore getting those approved with the right data. The clinical trial organization that we have in Europe and with arms of it even in India is looking at novel drugs and answering that question. Is the drug effective? Is it getting the right level of not just efficacy, but even safety profile that we need? Is it then effective in the right population? When should it be given? Should it be given in a certain age category, in a certain disease profile, within the disease profile? As you know, oncology, we have a large focus on oncology.
Yeah.
So, and is it right for these types of oncology patients? That particular opportunity, we are even creating value for our clients and partners by overlaying that with tech and data. Today, tech and data is very, very important for you to bring efficiency into any operation. In that part of the business where we started implementing tech real-world data opportunities is leading to even faster opportunities of bringing products on the market by going to very targeted areas, very specific patients that you can identify, enroll them, and check that the drug is actually working very well.
Correct.
In other parts of the business, of course, we are doing tech there as well. Ensuring that data capture is much more automatic, ensuring that the quality of the data is immediately checked, so that if there is any components of data that are not of the right quality, you redesign the experiment, you restart the experiment, and take that opportunity up in terms of digital systems, digital implementation. And then the last part, to answer your question of, are you realizing your dream of making an impact? We're also starting a group within Veeda that is focused on biologics development. The biologics is the future of the whole therapeutic industry, and we are working on analytical characterization packages, comparability packages, doing both novel biologics as well as biosimilars development, so that we support even the part of the industry that may or may not be ready to do their clinical trials and ready to do their preclinical work with us.
Right. Amazing. I think best wishes with your mission.
Thank you.
I'm sure as a farmer now we are here to amplify that, right? And we will help you out wherever it is needed. Thanks a lot for talking to us and sharing your insightful knowledge. That's really.
Thank you, Ravi.
Thanks a lot.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.